On this episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast, we're talking with our friend Darin all about raising kids who are empathetic.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Andrew.
Joel, so I just got a tweet. I tweeted out right before we went live and said, hey, we're going live.
Yes.
And Justin said, you going live during Sunday Night Football is going to put a dent in their ratings.
Yep.
You're right, Justin. You are right.
Bold comment, Justin. We will live into the unlikely truth of that statement. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us here at the Dudes and Dads podcast. Glad to have each and every one of you along. I'm having a great night. Speaking of football, the Lions won.
Congratulations.
Go Detroit. And the Tigers won today. Hot in the AL wildcard playoff spot.
Joel,
this is our year.
So I'm in 3 fantasy leagues. I know this is a lot for me.
Wow.
Oh, okay. So I just realized.
Three?
No, yeah, I'm in 3. So I'm in a family one. I'm in a church pastors and their kids league. And then also my work league.
You are, shall I say, enveloped in fantasy.
I know. And this week, my win probability against my opponent in my family league is good. My work league, I have. This is surprising me because last I looked, I was like, not gonna win.
You were not gonna win.
I was gonna win there too.
Okay.
And hold on, one more. This is the church league.
This is the one that really counts.
I have 1% winning.
Oh.
A 1% chance to win.
You have a 1% chance to win.
I looked after church today and realized that I had I think 2 or 3 of my players were out and they had already been locked in.
That'll do it. Andy, you got to stay on top of that roster.
Listen, I was doing things at church today. I couldn't.
You were serving the Lord today, and the were you? What were you on?
I was doing live stream video.
You're doing the live stream video.
Yes,
always in the live stream.
Yes.
Gosh, Andy, apart from a real roller coaster of a fantasy league experience, and apart from, all of my teams winning today. What else is going on? You doing okay? Things going all right?
Doing great. Doing great. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It was a great weekend. We had a good time. So
good.
Good to be back in the studio.
We were full tilt marching band parents on Saturday.
Oh man.
Over at the Penn High School. I forgot, and I shouldn't have forgot because I too am a recovering band kid. And so because of the size of our school, we tend to play in the evenings. So it's like the whatever. Sure. Aaron, what time did you guys play? Like 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock. 9 p.m. 9
p.m. Wow.
That's getting close to Daddy's bedtime. Let's be clear. So,
yeah.
So but it started off. We have to load semis at high school 3:30 p.m. Unload 6:30 p.m. Get everything out. This was our first time really moving all of this stuff. I was assigned the band generator because they have a generator out there.
Oh.
Didn't think of this for backup in case the power fails.
So you can play in the dark.
So they can because they've got all their keyboards and all this sort of stuff. Yes.
So we have all of our new electrical equipment.
Yes.
And that's why we need it.
Got it. Okay. So
you're in the new electrical age.
They have a new So long story short, that generator to hoist that across multiple parking lots at the high school was surprisingly difficult.
I'm sure.
Anyway, I gotta get band fit is what I need to do because Aaron also informed us that he's strongly considering doing what is known as winter percussion, which all anyone needs to know is it just means I will be pushing more stuff across parking lots is really what it comes down to. So anyway, but a good time. They got first place in their division.
Guys.
Yeah, it was super great. So Goshen Crimson Marching Band, great job, everybody. That was super cool. And so that took the whole Saturday. Let's call it what it was. So it was awesome. Anything for you going on? New big things, exciting things?
Nothing new except for I'm really enjoying, again, tonight we're streaming into the Zoom meeting, which anyone can join and have back channel access, backstage access.
Backstage. Behind the green curtain, if you will.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of mystery here at this podcast, and we're letting you in.
Dudesanddads.com/join will get you there every time we're there. So if you want to join us, dudesanddads.com/join. But We also want to thank Everence because support for this podcast comes from Everence, dedicated to helping make Medicare an easy step through education, seminars, individual consultations. Learn more at everence.com/Medicare-Monday. Securities Incorporated, offered through Concourse Financial Group, Securities Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC.
Nailed it.
I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, well, hey, FINRA SIPC. Hey, and everybody, once again, we want to just thank those of you that have jumped on the awesome bandwagon so far to support our upcoming technology. Well, it's our current technology and upcoming technology needs, as we are needing a new high-powered, high-powered laptop
for
to
producing.
make the show happen. All the things.
Right, because we currently have one, but it is one we're borrowing from an employer, and we're not going to be able to do that much longer. And so
Andy's current laptop is the last bet. We have slowly over the last 5 years actually started using our own. We've borrowed initially. We borrowed everything.
Right. And thanks to you guys, really, thanks to you guys, we've been able to purchase our own equipment.
This is the next one, and it's a big one, and we just want to say every dollar helps. So if you are able to contribute to the Dudes and Dads podcast new computer fund, make this show happen fund, don't let us die on the vine fund.
Wow, you have all sorts of.
Hey, I'm working on another capital campaign right now for work, and I'm really dialing into the title is important.
Sweet. So you can join us and help us out at dudesanddads.com/help.
/help.
Dudesanddads.com/
Thanks everybody.
All right, Joel.
Hey, what's
up tonight?
Hey, our friend Darin Shrock is on the show with us, and I'm super excited about it.
Let me say, he is a alumni.
He is a Dudes and Dads alumni.
We were just discussing this about when it was
because we have a hard time remembering how long ago guests have been on the show.
Right, and it was back in 21. Is that what I said?
February of 2021.
A long time ago.
I mean, when we were barely even, it was probably even not even legal for us to be in the same room together. At the time. I don't even know. Hi, Darin. Hey, thanks for being with us, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
it's fantastic to be back.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It is. We were just, it feels like it was 6 months ago. But that's how everything is. We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, it just goes super quick. Time flies, and that's I think it's one of those things where we always feel really, really excited when someone who's been on the show agrees to come back on. That to me is a sign that we haven't poisoned them to the experience.
That's good.
Also good. Tonight we're diving into this conversation. And this conversation, as I told Andy, really came. Darin and I were getting coffee earlier last week. Again, the days fly by, and we were having a conversation around. There's so many things we talked about, but one of the things that we talked about was developing. Well, the experience of either our kids. Encountering our kids on their empathy development journey. I think that's a nice way of saying it. Because they're depending on their age, season of life, gender, and a myriad of other things, our kids can have varying degrees of empathy. And that is, the ability to enter into someone else's thought world and experiences and emotions. And I will say, sometimes when talking with your kid and trying to help them understand how maybe they made someone else feel or how they're making you feel, it makes you feel like a crazy person. And like you're, you have this sense that it's important, right? The empathy is important. And I mean, the big conversation right now is, and this is, I think, the baseline thing that I kind of wanted to put out. And I was checking on this earlier because I was like, I thought my memory, again, the memory slips and it fails. I thought I was accurate on this. Really, this is a conversation about emotional intelligence, ultimately. And emotional intelligence, for those of you that don't know, EQ is we got to have the abbreviation for it. That is a big conversation in the workplace. It's a big conversation also in just leadership development, in our own, the kind of predictors for success in life in general. So whenever we're talking about emotional intelligence, those are kind of 5 core categories of the makeup of a person's personality, and an EQ score or an EQ assessment that you can do now. It's really designated as the highest predictor of success in life, and that's career and otherwise. So 5 categories that make up emotional intelligence: self-awareness. And again, I want you to think through the lens of you as the adult, but then also your child at whatever life stage that they are, however old they are. Think about these things. Developing self-awareness, motivation, self-regulation, social skills, and finally the big one, which we're talking about tonight, empathy. So those categorically are the things that we as human beings want to develop in order to be we could say globally, like responsible citizens, engaged people within our communities. But also, if you encounter someone who is an emotionally intelligent person, almost right away, and in general, that you want to be around them more. And if they are not emotionally intelligent, which we have all met those people as well, we've perhaps worked with them or maybe had them in our extended families or our social groups or whatever. Those are people that the people with low emotional intelligence are the people that when my wife says, hey, we're doing XYZ tonight, and so is going to be there, and they are a low EQ person, I find myself like the energy draining out of my body or having to like summon a certain energy within myself to go and do that. Is anybody else with me, or am I the only jerk here at this table? Do we know what I'm talking about? That person? Okay.
I'm definitely with you.
Great. So this is, we're establishing the foundation here. Emotional intelligence is important. One of the categories with key categories or subcategories within emotional intelligence is this empathy thing. And when we're talking about empathy, we are talking about the action of understanding, being aware, or being sensitive to, and vicariously, big word, guys, vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of other people.
I think it's important to note too. That's also without taking them on as your own.
Yeah.
Because you can. That's a whole different thing.
Right.
That bringing them on as your own is something else other than empathy.
Right. The ability, Andy, and you and I were talking about, Darin, our challenge is always on these episodes is like, what's the show title? Because like the show title is like the framework for which we like build out the conversation. And Andy was really pushing me. He's like, what do you want the show title to be? And I was like, well, this is kind of like, it's kind of like helping our kids walk in other people's shoes kind of thing. Like if you're talking about that, like
I like that.
It seems like that's right.
Yeah.
I think. So Darin, right now, I'll put you on the spot, and this is always the fun part because it's like we'll talk about our kids respectfully, but inevitably, whenever we're having these conversations, these conversations are informed by interactions we have had with our kids, either our interpersonal relationship with them or their relationships with other peers or people they're interacting with. So right now, and then I want to have this conversation of our immediate experiences with this here at this table. And then I'm going to throw a little social, as I like to do on occasion, throw a little social science in here because I came across a very telling, interesting article about empathy, specifically amongst teenagers, which will be interesting. But Darin, I'm wondering, thinking of your family, thinking of conversations you've had in the past recently, what is the biggest challenge that you feel like you have? And then I'm gonna share, and then Andy can share what his thoughts are. The biggest challenge you have with just having the conversation with your kids of trying to get them to understand how another person might be feeling in a situation, to get them to just enter into that space slightly. What is hard about? Because it is hard.
Yeah.
What from your sense, what is hard about it?
I think at this age, they're trying to create their own identity, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of navel gazing. What is my what is my identity? I'm embarrassed. This is awkward is what I hear a lot.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they're focused on themselves, and probably that's a healthy thing to do. Like I need to figure out myself. And so that's the focus of their mind most of their day. I think if we're honest.
Yeah.
And so empathy requires them to put that aside and say, oh, this is how this person feels, and this is how I made them feel, whether that's me or their mom or their sibling, or like you said, with friends.
Yeah.
And I think that getting them to kind of step away from that and kind of step out of themselves is the biggest challenge that I've seen in our house. Just
That makes a lot
take
of
a step
sense.
back.
Yeah.
And just think for just a second how that might impact somebody.
Yeah. This is and just as Darin said, I mean, we were thinking about this the other day. In their middle school and high school years, it is a uniquely self-focused time. I even just think about two kind of circles that they exist, that our people can exist in. So academic circle. So what am I going to do to get certain academic outcomes that I am required to do, that, that mom and dad are expecting of me, and that, school administrators, whatever. So like, I need to do good on, this test, these exams, this class, or whatever. So what do I need to do? What can I do? What can I get away with? What can I not get away with? Like, that's a part of self-focus that is a little bit built into the system that they're in.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's a part of it. And learning that they are being compared against their peers in certain regards to that. That's reality. And that's unfortunately or unfortunately, I mean, that is a part of life that they will continue to experience for the next several years, and also into whatever they decide to do for a profession or whatever it is. And then also like extracurricular activities too. So sports, athletics. I mean, they might start off in those places, as we do with, whatever, T-ball, we're not keeping score. All the kids get to bat, but eventually it's like you will or will not make the team.
Right.
And that is going to be determined by how much, a certain level of focus and things that you're accomplishing within yourself to either be a part or not be a part of that group of people. Which, so in terms, that is like, that's a self focus. What do I need to do? I, what do I need to do? And I wonder, and Darin, I don't know if you, what your family conversation have been around this. I feel like this is not a strong point for us, probably not a strong point for us in our family, in light of the fact that there's this kind of system of self-focus and reasonable self-focus at this kind of developmental time. What are your thoughts as far as just like mom and dad trying to figure out, okay, how do we interject other non-self-focused experiences into their life at this time? Like to I'm not saying counteract, but to bring balance. Because I think that's part of the empathetic journey a little bit, is to help, like you said, help us step back a little bit, help us have a little bit larger, maybe it's not a 2-foot perspective. Maybe we can get up to 10 feet. I don't know.
Right.
Somewhere a little bit above the plane. Yeah, I don't know if you have any kind of experiences or thoughts about like either intentional. Most of the stuff that we do is like by accident, and we realize like, oh, hopefully that was helpful. Just in terms of introducing our kids to, just not being so self-focused all the time, because I feel like I should figure that out somehow.
And I'm not to cut you off, but
No,
I think that's tough too, because like you'd mentioned, kids at that age are trying to figure out who their own identity is. A lot of them is self-focused because they're trying to figure out who they are and what they stand for and all of that stuff. So that's a tough one. So Darin, take it away.
Yeah.
I can tell you what definitely does not work.
Perfect.
And that is just telling them this is what's going on.
You're being selfish right now, and I need you to stop.
I need you to stop doing that. No, I think part of what we focus on as a family is to have them just have interactions with other kids as much as possible. I honestly think that the more they're in front of a screen, talking to each other, the less they're able to see that. And so I kind of grumble at how much we're driving our kids around to hang out with other friends, and I will grumble until they have their own license. But at the same time, I have to remind myself that this is how they figure it out. They have to be around other kids because they're going to mess up.
Yeah.
Because their friends mess up too. I mean, they're kids and they're going to fumble through it. And there have been those moments. And thankfully, thankfully sometimes they want to talk to us about it and we can kind of talk through it. But, it's, I think also just them learning that life sometimes does not go out as planned and that they mess up too. And we can talk through that. So I think learning about it yourself and seeing your own faults is helpful to understand that, somebody else is going to feel the same way. I went through that.
Yeah.
And I can figure out, and my kids are seeing older kids reach out to them and say, hey, I know you're feeling this way because I felt that way.
Yeah.
And they're not only learning how to interact with their peers, but they're learning that once I'm older, I can also reach out to younger kids and say, hey, I went through that too.
So it was so funny. I'm so glad you said that. Aaron got a text message from one of the senior band leaders on the way over here, and I plan on sending a very, very nice text message to the parent of this high school senior because it was a big deal. Just thanking Aaron for in band together, and just thanking Aaron for his help and just kind of the intentionality that he brought. Kind of above and beyond sort of things this past weekend, and I was so I was so impressed by that. Any time a high school student who's older recognizes the impact that they can have, that's I love that. It's super cool. Brings kind of their perspective up a little bit and encourages them to. I think it's funny because it's like, I know those kind words went way farther than some of my
right.
some of
You're
my
too
encouragement.
biased.
Yeah. It's like, well, of course you're going to say
of course
that.
you're going to support me.
But this outside voice was just so immensely encouraging. It was really, really good to see. So I love when those sort of things happen. And another thing, gosh, Jackie and I had this conversation the other day. She brought it to my attention when she asked the question about, she's like, when you and I were kids, we hung out with other kids seemingly a lot more.
Yes.
She's like, is this just my perspective? She's like,
yep.
Cause I like our two youngest kids are way more, it feels a little bit more like social and hanging out with friends, but they have friends that are right in our neighborhood. So there's like a little bit of an ease,
Right. I was just going to say that too. Cause my kids, I think, we live out in the country, so it's hard for us to have that where they're hanging out necessarily. Now they are. I mean, they will go after youth group and go to Culver's or whatever, and and they'll go to different places like that after youth group. But I don't think nearly as much. Like I was riding my bike across town. Like I was always with somebody. Yeah. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think,
and now with texting too. I mean, they'll say we're around people, but because I see them like this the whole time texting. But
I thought it was a really interesting idea that Darin connected. I'm with you on this. It's kind of like aha, connecting, spending face-to-face meaningful time with other kids and being able to put yourself in the position of other people. And that if you're doing that by proxy instead through a screen or through electronic form, that it actually can, there's got to be research about this, like deadening our empathy toward people.
Well,
depending on how we're interacting, the nature of our interaction.
I think that is true because, I mean, obviously, we've seen it as adults, right? On Facebook, you can, one-on-one, when you're with somebody, we're pleasant and whatever, but then on Facebook, you see it and they're, over the stupidest things, right? We don't, because it's always like, well, I'm behind the screen. I don't have the accountability. Like, even though they know who I am and they see my name, it's still easier to get into fights where if I was in real life with this person, they probably wouldn't say the same things to me face to face, right? So I think that has something to do with empathy because it's harder to feel. It's harder to feel for people when they're behind a screen. Yeah, it really is.
That's good.
I'm hoping that they can figure it out. Just as a generation that has grown up with it, I'm hoping they can kind of figure that out. Yeah, because it's interesting that my experience with that, what you're referring to is with adults who didn't have screens, and so I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna go.
I feel like it's an experiment that we're in the midst of right now, right?
Absolutely,
right. I think that is true because you are right, Darin. Like we all didn't grow up with screens, for the most part, and so for us now, it's easy just to hide behind a screen. But what's that gonna be? And that may have to do too with when you give your kids screens too.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. So that may be an interesting experiment too, to see if that matters when they got their screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's kind of this baseline value of empathy and just saying, okay, empathy is important because it's directly connected to flourishing, just doing well in life, both now and into the future adulthood. If you learn empathy and understand empathy well, more is going to go right for you than it goes wrong, relationally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So I'm in the process right now of being trained as a Stephen minister.
Oh yes.
And so there are a lot of that. We are talking about like empathy and learning that, and so even us as adults like are having to learn that,
right?
And go over that and how to have that.
That's a perfect segue, Andy, because I'm sure this is part of your conversation. And forgive me, because the Stephen ministry thing is about like 8 years 8 years ago for me. But upon understanding empathy, then how to actually rightly empathize with a person, not taking on their full perspective, and knowing that we really can't ever fully do that.
You can empathize with somebody without necessarily agreeing, and that's one of the things that we talk about a little bit is the whole idea of you can empathize with somebody without necessarily agreeing with them. You know, you can see their side, you can empathize with them, but not necessarily be like, yes, you're right. And I think some people have trouble seeing that, but I think it's important to teach our kids that.
Yes,
right, because there may be friends that they don't see eye to eye on, but it's okay to empathize with them, and it's okay to
because I think the tendency, tell me what you guys think, the tendency for our kiddos is when they are sideways relationally with someone, or they don't agree with someone, is to do the opposite of empathy. Like it's like a hard like they're dead to me, and not necessarily like I don't, I'm saying that kind of in a harsh way, but it's a might there be an assumption that if they don't agree with a person, then they're not obligated to be empathetic toward them?
Oh,
is that maybe what happens? I don't.
Yeah.
It could probably happen. I mean, it happens with me with an adult, as an adult, maybe, but with them, probably. I don't know, because maybe they don't have the again, and some child psychologists could tell me, but just maybe they don't have the categories exactly to be like, okay, how do I? And this is a major life skill. How do I recognize that what they did or what they're doing or what they're promoting is not something that I agree with, and yet I need to be able to enter in to some degree to a place of understanding, well, maybe here's how they got there, or here's how they, because again, this feels like kind of a life skill that is really important for any of us when trying to, conflict resolution or any of that. I'm just thinking about like how my kids talk about other kids with whom they disagree on a particular topic with, and maybe there's something to that, I guess.
So as a parent, how do we help teach our kids that? I mean, I think experience goes a long way, right? Like I think you said, Darin, when like walking alongside of them and being like, hey, maybe you could, like kind of explain to them, like maybe not explain is maybe not the right word, but show them or point them out that, hey, maybe this person XYZ, maybe the reason they're doing this is X, maybe that's not the case too, but just kind of point out there's more than just what meets the eye in the immediate situation. Like all you see is they may have backstabbed you and talked about you to your friends, and now there's an issue, but there may be something else going on there. So like how do you guys, Darin, I'll pick on you. How do you how would you explain that to your kids?
And I'm not a child psychologist.
Sure.
Either, right. I think, when I think about what makes it easier is a certain amount of self-esteem or a certain amount of self-assurance, right? Because when a child, when we're automatically enemies and therefore I'm not a part of your group, I think it takes a certain amount of self-assurance to be able to say, I can not identify with you, but also put myself in your shoes. And I'm not worried about jockeying for I'm in this group or I'm a part of that group, which is really difficult at this age.
Yep.
And so, man, that is, I think self-esteem just plays a huge role in that, at least from what, even in my own personal experience, right? I mean, you have to be pretty comfortable in your own skin. How you implement that in a child is
right. Well, I think it's different for us adults because we know who we know who we are, right? We know we're there's not that cliques, that groups of people, those things that if you do something wrong, then you're going to be made fun of by the whole school, right? Like most of the time, I'm not going to get made fun of by my whole work employee, the people I work for. I might maybe a little bit, but not the whole thing. And even as an adult, you kind of get that skill of letting that roll off your back. Where I think, I don't know if that's a skill or a detriment, but you have that. And as kids, you don't necessarily have that. I mean, I remember times of it's hard. Like there's this choice. There's this kid who's maybe not the most popular kid, and he's being picked on. Or like, how do you have empathy for that? How do you do that without going, oh, I'm standing up for him, I'm going to be made fun of? Like there's that conscious like fighting in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, to do what's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so, Darin. I think what you said is perfect. Like that self-esteem, that knowing who you are outside of everybody in your classroom helps go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't take. It's really easy, especially with 4 kids. It's really easy to see all the ways that your kids don't do the right things at times.
Yeah.
That's what you focus on a lot of times.
Absolutely.
But I think, and I need to do this more, right? They should hear more about who they are from us than who they're not.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Golly.
That's probably one of my worst worst aspects as a father, but that is something that I think speaking that into them and saying this is who you are, and then feeling comfortable to say, okay, you know, I when they show up and the rubber hits the road, they can be that person that stands up for that kid.
Yes.
And because I've seen my children do it, but again, you see that it's taking the time to stop and say, hey, I saw how you did that, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think they hear that more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's difficult.
Cheering on, and again, this is going to sound like super non-scientific, but there's a lot of good evidence around the idea that if you want to affect positive behavior, key in on the positives, talk that up, act like one of my favorite, and like we'll call it a not safe for work sort of media business mogul, Gary Vaynerchuk. Like I spend a lot of time listening to Gary V. He uses the F word a whole lot, so that's why I just have the pause on that. But he talks about immigrant family that came from Belarus. His dad, he was helping run his dad's store like from very, very early age. It's one of these these stories of like started for nothing, they built a business. It was like night and day hard work. And people are always like, what makes you tick? He's like, I have an out of control self-esteem. Like there's like out of control. And he's in this whole conversation, he goes, because my mother, every time I would do something that was like morally correct, like took the right road on something, she would celebrate it like it was like just over the top acknowledging it, right? And so I just became this kid that was like not just minorly confident in doing the right thing, but like very confident in doing the right thing. Like doing the right thing is always the right choice. It will always be the correct way to go. And that cemented that into him. So that when he went off into future life and again started his own company and all that from nothing, and was doing things like if you can think about this, doing like wine reviews on YouTube before anybody was doing anything, like using YouTube as a platform for like before people were doing that, and like had like just a few people watching, like it was like whatever, and just stuck it out, and now it's like it's a whole other thing. So
he passes that on too. I mean, you see
big time.
interviews, I mean, interactions he has with
big
folks.
time. Yes,
and he does it for other people, which is really
well.
Cool.
When you get 30 minutes with him in a room, you walk out of that room, you honestly think you're like, I can take on the world. Like I have everything I need to do this. And so that's the gosh, that's going to be that's going to stick out in my head here. I think like I really need connecting this with empathy. Like I really need to be instilling that level of confidence in my kids to kind of, because it's a little bit of it's kind of the gas that the empathy engine runs on a little bit.
That's good. Like that.
I think that's what's happening. See, guys, listen, we sit here, we talk long enough. I actually figure out what's going on.
And I think too, like as parents, it's good for us to have empathy for our kids too.
Yeah.
Because I know how many times that I've come home and like there's something out in the yard or something that I'm just like, and I immediately probably know who the culprit is.
100%.
But like
100%.
For one, I can't jump to those conclusions. I shouldn't jump to those conclusions. But
are you right 90% of the time? Yes, you are, Andy.
But that's besides the point. No, but I mean, even empathy. Like I don't know what was going on. Like I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe he did something and then it got called away. Like I can't go in and be mad at him. But the
or
thing
her.
To be honest. Okay.
But
the other thing I was thinking too, Joel, is when you were talking about Gary Vee and having that like positive.
Yeah.
I also have heard and experienced like the idea of when you're gonna give criticism to do that criticism sandwich, right? Positive, like whatever.
Hey,
criticism.
love how you're doing this.
Right.
Would like to see more here. But remember, also just
you're doing great.
You're doing great.
So positive things that need corrected. Then the positive.
Just like when I bring my staff in for their annual review.
You're doing great, but we don't want you to work here anymore.
Yeah,
but
no. Thank goodness I've not had any of those conversations. Yes, and the challenge, and this was part of the conversation Darin and I had earlier over coffee, was the older I get, or there seems like to be in a season where I'm having a harder time putting myself in my kids' shoes.
Absolutely.
That is where at 25, me remembering what it was like to be a 13-year-old, that's a lot easier. At 40 plus, I pointed at Andy when I said 40 plus. I'm sorry if you guys didn't get the visual joke. It's okay.
It should be to both of us. I'm over 40 now.
Yeah. So at 40 and beyond, like when I'm talking to my 14-year-old, it's kind of like I recognize the value of trying to like put okay, I want to understand and be able to speak rightly to whatever challenge they're going through right now. But I am probably pretty quick to dismiss like the level of intensity or severity because
why do you think that is?
Because I know that in the end it's going to be okay. I know that. It's good.
I got you. So you're saying you have less empathy for them.
Because I stand to it is possible that I would have less empathy because my older adult perspective, I can convince myself, which is not correct at all, because the fact that I know that their current situation is going to be just fine does not excuse me from lovingly and rightly entering into their world and trying to put myself in their shoes a little bit. I just think it knowing what we know as adults or people who have lived longer, it's just easy to kind of like take a side route and be like, yeah, I could feel bad for you right now, or whatever. But here's the deal: in like a week, this is not going to matter.
A week or tomorrow,
or tomorrow,
yes, tomorrow.
Or tomorrow,
when you wake up.
Yeah. So I think that was just, I don't know, as we were talking, that was kind of like okay, to what degree do I need to be able to return to that space? Because I feel it getting more, I need to, number one, acknowledge it is getting more difficult. Or at least right now it feels like there's a season of, like I really have to put forth a pretty considerable amount of energy to like find myself in this place where I can like appropriately, not like overly sore or anything over the top, but appropriately come alongside of you and say, yeah, I see how that would be tough. I understand why you're feeling this way.
Well, I think sometimes for let's just say us guys, because that's the three of us are talking, are guys.
Yeah.
for those of us who have girls, sometimes that can be hard too, because I mean, if we're doing empathy correct, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does because we just don't understand.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different things at play. We've never experienced that. We were never a girl growing up.
Yep.
And hormones are different, and lots of things are different. And so for us as guys, sometimes it is hard.
Yeah.
To do it. So I mean, let's talk about that. Like how do we be empathetic with maybe the opposite sex of who we are versus.
I want to get
Darren,
Darren's honest opinion on this because I'm wondering, because Darin has older girls. Mine is only 8, so I'm still. She's 8, and I feel like her and I maybe have at times the best mind meld connection, and I'm not sure what that says about me.
Yeah.
But like
you get your Taylor Swift on too.
It's funny because that was on her request playlist as we were driving earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost made the joke to her about like Molly. I'm not sure how I feel about you playing your playlist consisting mostly of a person who just talks about their bad decisions all the time. Neither here nor there.
Of her artistry, right?
Yeah, whatever. But Darin, how have you navigated that? Have you felt that tension of the trying to place yourself in the position, and it's a quote unquote girl thing or whatever, or have you just immediately said go talk to your mother? I mean, that's because that free pass.
Asked and answered. No, no, that's it's interesting to me. I almost have a harder time. Well, I take more time to try and understand them. Just because I don't.
Yeah,
it's actually kind of an advantage for them because I'm sitting there trying to figure this out, how they're feeling about it. Whereas with boys, I feel like I know.
You have a perspective.
So I'm like, when you were talking about doing the end around, that's all day. I'm like, no, I get it. I've been, okay, let's figure this out. So it's almost like I think, for the girls, I like to say they'll break your heart and they'll melt your heart.
Yeah.
You know, and they will, absolutely.
Just preparing myself.
Preparing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I almost feel, and for whatever reason, I mean, of course I care about them equally, but there's something different about when a girl breaks down and is struggling. I don't know what it is. For me, it just like, I just melt. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And with my sons, I'll be like, hey, come on.
Yeah.
Like
get
rub some dirt on
get
it.
Together.
We're gonna be fine. Get it together. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's a bias in myself, I'm sure.
I share
entirely.
it too. I had a conversation with my 2 eldest boys today about how their football injuries, in my opinion, they took too long to recover. They needed to get back out there sooner. I will never say that to Molly. Probably ever. Will I be like, listen, you need to rub some dirt on it. Probably not. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do I understand them? Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
They'd probably agree.
But it's, I think I also want to model something for them. I think that's part of it. Is I want to model something for them in who they should look for in the future.
Yep.
I want them to find somebody who will sit down and listen and will hear. I mean, I don't do this every time.
Yeah.
Right. That would just not be possible. But for the most part, if they really break down, oh my gosh. Yeah. That's my heartstrings.
And Shrock girls, if you're listening, we just want to be very clear. We don't think you're breaking down regularly to your father, but we're sure you're very. We know you're
same amount as the boys. It's
just your dad. It's just your dad feels.
Breakdowns.
Yeah, your dad feels a more immediate sense of like actually giving you time.
I'm giving away secrets here. They don't know this.
Yeah. Well, again, welcome behind the green curtain.
Yeah.
Golly, that is, that is the case. So this was a little, just to tag this in, because we always love a little bit of social science in not in every episode. Sometimes there's zero science in any of our episodes. So Frontiers in Psychology magazine, October 2022 issue, did this whole study, did a lengthy study on the development of empathy amongst teenagers. So this was, and the study was actually, I think, 11 to 18-year-olds and then on into adulthood. So this is the interesting thing, that empathy begins to show up in kids somewhere around age 4 in their development. Mm-hmm. So some sense that they can identify through facial expressions and voice tone and things like that. They can identify how someone else is feeling, and they're like, they make a connection with that to some degree. Again, that's kind of a really broad brushstroke. So what was interesting about this study, though, is it showed that empathy levels, I think we're going to really identify with this. So empathy levels between the age of their study, I'll just say amongst males, and the numbers are not going to really mean anything to you, but it'll help you for scale. So empathy level amongst boys 11 to 12 was right at about we'll call it 60, was at a 64. When empathy levels amongst 13 to 14-year-old boys plummeted down to 54. So they actually became less empathetic in those years. And then it's a slow, gradual uptick, kind of 15 on through adulthood. It's just kind of a gradual upward line in that direction. Interesting. Yeah. I think that I think this ties into stage of life and kind of the self-focus sort of thing. Yeah. It might help some of our listeners to know this seems to be a natural kind of biological, psychological process. So that if all of a sudden your kids feel like real selfish little whatevers, right around that early teenage year, this is what happens.
There's a reason.
Well, and I it's funny what I've noticed. I have to be really careful here because I don't want to say anything that's going to pinpoint one child.
Yep.
But there is a child who is trying to, I think I remember, and some of this I do remember, is trying to figure out what am I capable of? And I could see how that would entail not being really empathetic with other people, because you're trying to figure out how much pain can I inflict on another human being, or whatever. Yeah. And I just like pushing that limit of like,
yes. Yeah. And by the way, I think it's really absolutely necessary. This is I don't know how controversial this statement is. I think it is necessary in our development, particularly as men, to understand how capable we are of harming other people. Like, and to actually legitimately be capable of it. Sure. Like, because by the way, all your good deeds don't matter jack if you weren't able to do something the complete opposite, right? If you're just a real lollygagger, if you're not if you do not have the potential for serious harm to another person, then you being kind or nice or whatever to a person isn't much of an accomplishment, right? But if you're like a fierce dude and you are gentle and loving and all of that, that's a whole, like, that's a that's a man, right? Like, that is,
you're choosing to be
that's
good
correct
at that point,
right? You have made a decision.
So you're saying we should go out and be mean.
I'm not.
So that we can be empathetic later.
I am not. I think we should be gosh, this
is the danger.
Yeah. This is the danger, right? This is where we say something that people are going to take wrong. This show is hardly ever controversial, but here it is. Yes. So I think that process, though, is extremely valuable. Sure. But again, recognizing like it is wrought with peril at every level. So there's the trek for our boys. Okay, that's what they found in this study. Girls, surprise, surprise. So they start at their watermark starts at a higher degree of empathy to begin with. So where boys start at like a 64, girls start at like they had them at like on average almost a 70. Their empathy went from like a 70 to a 71 between ages 12 and 13, and then did not decline. Their decline, though it was a decline, was far less severe, down like 2 points at ages 15 to 16. So they were delayed a couple of years in their downward, and then basically matched the exact same trajectory as boys post 16, like going into young.
I've got the chart up there right now. We go. So
but yes, that's the chart. Always higher,
but always higher.
Surprise!
So really what we are talking about both our girls and our boys and raising them, there's a difference here. There's a difference. Okay, and we can just say this, it's very clear that our boys and our girls are wired differently in this
Totally.
area. Like I think that's a pretty apparent thing. But but at least, I don't know, sometimes when you just have this sense of like, oh, there is a season where their ability to put themselves in other people's shoes does decrease a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it has something to do with their stage of development as an adolescent. So you take a deep breath, mom and dad, take a deep breath, and just know that is par for the course in their life development. Knowing that in general, if something really traumatic doesn't happen to them, that by and large they will begin this upward trajectory of developing that empathetic skill and hopefully developing a wider range of emotional intelligence in all those categories as they get into young adulthood. So if you are, as we are, in that 14 to 16-year-old range, we all have kiddos there. Just know that your work is worth it, but you're going to feel the pushback. You're going to feel the pushback.
Right.
You're going to feel the tension.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
For you guys. So I wonder if you were talking about how it can be difficult to empathize a little bit. And thinking back, is there any fear that you have in empathizing and encouraging the wrong things?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think that's a rub.
Yep.
Right? You want to be careful not to empathize to the point where you're approving or
Right.
encouraging them.
Because I need to remain,
wallow in
and I need
that.
to remain the adult in
Right.
this.
Right.
There's a real dark side of this, and I'm going to explain, as I often do, like super hyperbolically, just to make the point. So I go hard one direction. The parent that is kind of crawling up on the couch with their kiddo every time, and just entering into their full meltdown. And I'm not saying don't be loving and don't be sympathetic.
Right.
But who is actually taking on the persona of another young person.
So
next to
this
them.
is where you're not really being empathetic, but you're taking on
This is the
their
unhealthy-
emotions. This is the
yeah, yeah.
unhealthy,
Which is what you were touching on with on the Stephen Minister side of things. Yeah. We need I think we need ahead of time a little bit of a guardrail or because I think when they see me as the adult entering kind of emotionally and mentally in the same spot that they are, that is kind of that can be a carte blanche, kind of a license
Right.
for immaturity. Because this trusted adult person is becoming less mature with me. They're choosing to be less mature with me, right? Alongside me. Whether that is your intention or not, that is I think by and large how it is perceived. This is why, side note, if your kids are in youth group and the reason that they like their youth pastor is because he acts like they do, red flag. Or any adult that is having who is just the coolest. And why are they so cool? Well, you find out they're cool because they're not emotionally challenging them at all, and they're kind of
Right.
entering into their youth space as an adult. That's not helpful for them either. They will like that in the immediate sense, and they will look back on that later and being like, that was a missed opportunity. So I think that's the one dangerous side. And then the other is what we've been talking about, is it a complete dismissal of their feelings, complete dismissal of it. Listen, this is not a big deal. You need to get it together. You need to summon all of those emotional skills that are clearly not developed within you yet. You need to be an adult, get in your emotional time machine and act 20 years older and move on with you. That's the other, I think, another unhealthy side. So I don't want to be one of the, I'm not one of the dudes, right? I'm not one of these I'm not one of these. I'm not a teenager.
I'm the dude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's excellent.
So that's what you call me. But yeah, I think those. I don't know that if that really answers the questions, but that's what I think in my interaction, I'm thinking of those two polar opposites. I'm thinking of the ditches on either side of that, and saying, boy, find the road in between there as best as possible, and then surround yourself with people like hopefully that I have in my life who are going through the same thing and can tell me if I'm being an idiot or if if it's like, oh, my approach is reasonable. And again, as we say again and again, I think when we're talking about it on this show, we're always talking about it kind of in a little bit of a vacuum, apart from the reality. Like we all know, like chances are good that I'm going to be required to be empathetic with my child after I've had the longest day of the entire month, and we have a ball game to get to in 10 minutes, and and the gas tank's on E because we're taking your mom's car, and that's a low gas gauge joke because my wife always gives me the vehicle.
We have to acknowledge that.
We just,
I'm just going to be honest. In my marriage, that's usually my fault.
Is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's me.
It's like Jackie's like, why don't you take the van? I was like, okay, no problem.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. There's the light. There's the light. No. So yes, our conversation here is obviously like, oh, this is the thing that we're striving and moving toward. However, it feels like so often, I don't know about you guys, but these conversations are not held like, hey, we just finished dinner, got a little bit of time, let's all sit down. Let's just have a talk. How are things going? It seems like you had a rough day. Tell me about that. Yeah, I cannot think of the last time that was really the scenario in which we had the conversation, and that is part due to the 4 kiddos and a lot going on, and they're involved in the things, and they're trying to be social, and we're trying to encourage that and all of that, and meanwhile have time and space for needed conversations for sure. So.
And now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
Ray, did you recently record that?
Not recently.
Gosh, that feels like
it's newer than the one.
We had
originally. But
Gosh.
It's been a while.
Oh, we should all get them in because all their voices have changed.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm the dude.
Wrong one.
Oh,
that's not one of our kids. I was thinking this one.
What's brewing?
That's an old one, but that's Hattie when she was.
Thank you, Hattie Mae.
Get one where the voice cracks.
Yeah,
please,
that's right.
At some point.
Yeah, that's got to be on there.
I hope so.
That's
All
gotta
right.
be on
So
there.
if you've never joined us, the pop quiz is just when we pepper Darin with questions that have nothing to do with empathy.
Yeah,
I may be feeling some empathy for him at the end of this bit.
nice, good.
Yeah.
Good.
But are you ready, Joel?
I'm ready.
Go ahead and ask your first one.
Okay, Darin, of your 6 family members, who is most likely to survive the longest come the zombie apocalypse? There's a lot to take into consideration.
My oldest daughter.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And why?
Oh, she's so calculated.
Oh.
She is very methodical. She's very she's 3 steps ahead of everybody.
Nice. So she will.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Honestly, Jolene would just want it over with. She would just. We've had this conversation. No joke. We've had this conversation. I wouldn't. So I've always had this thought: like if you are stockpiled,
Yes.
and you think you're going to survive a zombie apocalypse, you've got to be prepared to kill somebody else.
Right.
Sorry, we're getting a little.
Yeah.
You got to be able to you got to be able to do things that nobody else most people are not willing to do.
That is absolutely correct.
I am not willing to do that.
Yeah.
And neither is Jolene, I don't
Yeah.
think. So
we
not
were
that
actually-
not that my oldest is.
But hopefully you've raised children that are willing to do
we were
whatever
actually-
is necessary.
We were actually just talking about something similar, not as a zombie apocalypse, but we were watching Survivor before I came over, and both Julie and I said, I just couldn't do this. Like, yeah, I could probably do the physical challenge stuff,
Yeah.
but the calculated lying and mental like
Yeah.
that cheating
Right.
like
The
that.
backstabbing, all
We just
that.
couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's hard.
Oh,
It's hard.
yeah.
I get it. Okay, Andy, go for it.
All right, Darren, what's your favorite gadget?
Oh man. I just got this recently. I have it's kind of a love-hate relationship
Okay.
with this new
Love it.
alarm clock that I
Oh,
got.
yeah. Okay.
And it turns on light.
Uh-huh.
And it starts with light.
Uh-huh.
And so your body kind of reacts to the light before you hear that noise that
Yeah.
just
The grating.
and I thought it was going to be this thing that I was going to like, oh, I'm going to wake up so refreshed and ready to go because it's light. It's the same feeling. I still hit the snooze every time. Snooze is hit 3 times, whether it's that or just a regular alarm. But I do appreciate it.
Nice. Darren, what book, apart from the Bible, I always feel like we have to say this, what book should Andy and I be reading right now?
Oh, man. So something that I've gotten back into is fasting. You and I talked about this the
We
other
did.
day.
Yeah.
And I started reading God's Chosen Fast.
Ooh.
And so I always thought this was pretty straightforward. Like you just don't eat. But there's like layers to this that this book does a fantastic job
Yeah.
of opening up. So that's what I'm reading right now anyway.
Nice.
So
Nice.
amongst other things, but
To help you to substantiate your choices not to eat. Is that like you needed some backup on this? You're like, I'm gonna do this, but I need something to tell me that this is okay.
I honestly need a little more depth to it.
Perfect.
I mean it's kind of makes it a little more interesting.
Well, yeah.
You look for because otherwise
It's an opportunity for sure.
it is.
That's great.
All right, if you had someone following you around all day, not in a creepy way,
Oh,
what would you have them do?
so they're like they're
Like an assistant
They're like a personal
that
assistant.
just follows you around.
Got it.
I think they would have to laugh at my jokes because
Yeah.
nobody else is.
Gosh.
So I'd have to.
Darren, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel that I
You know how many
empathize with
jokes
that.
I tell
empathize.
every day that my kids don't laugh at, and they are fantastic.
They are.
jokes.
They are. They're quality.
Oh, such a waste.
Matthew, my 11-year-old, the other day. Now it seemed like a really weird joke for him to tell me, but he's like, just out of blue, he goes, "Dad, do you know?" He goes, "Dad, do you know why white girls can't count to 8?"
Oh no.
I was like, "What? No." He's like, "Because they can't even." And then I died.
Oh man.
I died laughing. And I was like, and then I did a little inventory, and I'm like, now did I die laughing at that because the joke itself was all that funny? No, I died laughing because he was the one that was saying it. That was what really caught me off guard.
That is funny. I
Yeah.
would not expect him to say
Exactly. It totally caught me off guard. My final question would be, Darren, what's the tastiest thing that you have eaten within the last month?
Oh man.
that.
Let's hope his wife made it, but let's see.
It was.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So glad. So glad.
She's, I don't know if you know this. We went plant-based about 5 years ago, which makes this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Andy.
So I'm not going to be
Andy,
invited back after this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I
Is
was
this
already
it?
say.
Okay.
You're not going to be
get on the
invited to the
spreadsheet.
yeah.
Just draw the line through it. No.
You won't be invited to our summer cookout.
Okay. You went plant-based.
Cookouts are a challenge. I
I'm
will
sure.
say that.
You got to be those people. You're like, we brought our own vegan burger. Yeah, whatever.
We might have eaten a meal before we showed up, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So you
Yeah.
went plant-based. Got it.
Yeah. So all that judgment aside, it was for health reasons. It's been
I'm
good
sure
for
that
us.
whatever you did was a wise, calculated decision. We're not here to. I mean,
I've got empathy for you.
gosh, so much empathy. But
You're about the only one. Everybody else.
like, why would you? But
why would-
yes.
yeah. So she makes it's a tofu, lettuce, and tomato sandwich that is fantastic.
Okay.
So the key is the soy sauce.
Ah,
Believe it or
yes.
not.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
you make like a nice patty of tofu. It's a little burnt. And you're looking at me like there's no way.
I want to believe, Jolene. I want to believe this. I really, really do. I want to believe this. Because I'm picking up on his sincerity and earnestness in all of this.
Totally sincere.
Totally sincere.
Totally
I think he
sincere.
really legitimately believes it. And because you guys have not always been plant-based, so I know that you have a memory of what eating actual meat tastes like. So okay, you know what?
I'm here for the ribbing.
Okay.
It's totally fine.
No.
And here's the funny thing, and this is why I'll say this one thing, and this is the only serious thing I'll say about it, is when you can't use meat, you have to be really creative with your food. And so some of the best food I've had has been on the plant-based world.
Yeah, and I would say just, gosh, I hesitate to say this. There was a time in my life when, I don't know how to say this in a way that is not gonna, my wife is gonna jump all over me for this, and so I want to say it. There was a time in my life when I had relationships with individuals that were like had vegan diets.
Sure.
Okay. And I ate what they ate predominantly, and I will say, like, at their main meals or whatever, when I was like visiting with them or whatever.
Nice.
And I will say it was delicious. Like there were flavor profiles and things like that I had never tasted before that were really, really good.
Yeah.
The problem was I was hungry 30 minutes later. So
you do have to eat way more.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people make the mistake of, one, they don't eat enough.
Yep.
And two, they just aren't. It takes time to get used to some of the foods.
Sure.
Like black beans. Like everybody needs time to get used to black beans.
That's a quote.
Wow.
That's a quote from the podcast.
Everyone,
give it a couple weeks.
Yes, give it time. Give it time. Okay.
Darren, you successfully.
Yes, he did.
Quiz.
He did. It's okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on today and talking
Darren,
about empathy.
This is so much fun.
We hope so.
I have so much fun here.
I'm so glad.
You'll probably be invited back.
You will probably,
even if you're plant-based. You'll probably be.
It was touch and go there for a second.
Should we have a food episode?
Oh, we could do a live cooking show.
Shut your face. That's an awesome idea.
I will bring in food that I'll be like, hey, you guys need to try this.
Let's work on it.
Oh.
He just introduced.
This is our Christmas episode.
The Christmas. Can we do a like a plant-based?
Yeah.
A plant-based holiday cooking episode.
Oh, I'm here for that.
Okay,
all right,
we're gonna work on it.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
I like it. I'm excited. I can't believe I'm excited about something like that. Okay, hey friends, as always, can head over to dudesanddads.com to check out all current and previous episodes
and future.
In the future episodes?
Sure.
There's a time machine over there, Andy. Also, dudesanddads.podcast@gmail.com if you got any future show ideas for us. Want to reach out to us, any of that good stuff.
Our voicemail is 574-213-8702. You can call that and leave a voicemail at
day or night.
Anytime. You might wake up Joel, but not me.
Guys, we're so grateful to have you along on this journey. Thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, we wish you grace
and peace.